Unspoken Issues.
All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. 96 number ones rolls on. And we are about to talk about April's poll winner. The poll was as follows. Heartbreakers number one did 9% of the vote. That was our dark horse entry. I didn't pull the votes, but it's still an interesting curveball. Kind of shows how wide the 90s landscape really was beyond just superheroes. Then we got Spider-Man Legacy of Evil number one, a Marvel comic coming in at 16%. Bit of a sleeper here. Spidey drama in the thick of the Clone Saga period, I believe. There's definitely material to dig into, even if it didn't grab the top spot. Then we have Grifter, Shy, or She, however you want to call it. Number one comes in at 30% of the vote. This is peak 90s crossover energy.
Wanted to see a crossover between She and Turok Dinosaur Hunter.
Okay.
Just imagine how the title would look.
Oh, nice. Yes, it would. And then we have our winner with 45% of the vote. That's Batman Black and White number one. Almost half the vote here out of all four options. So Evan Bevins, Batman Black and White number one. Were you aware that this thing was dropping back in 96?
No, that was before my DC days, really.
Okay.
It wasn't until Morrison's JLA that I really jumped into. I would get the occasional DC comic, Superman dying, Batman breaking his back,
You're right.
Green Lantern having an unfortunate accident with his zipper, that kind of thing. But so when things went bad for DC's heroes, I was usually there to invest and secure my future and my progeny for generations to come.
Oh yeah.
That didn't work out. But in terms of Batman slice of life, artistic things with maybe some creators you wouldn't expect to be dropping into Gotham on a hot summer's day, no, that was not on my radar at that point.
We're looking at the cover. Jim Lee does not do a story in this one, but when you see Jim Lee and Scott Williams on the cover of Batman Black and White number one, that might make you think of some things that are going to come later on in Jim Lee's career. So anyway, yeah, this definitely flew under my radar. I had no idea what this was about.
I thought the Black and White anthologies came later for some reason, or now Marvel does Black, White, and Red.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't know Wolverine stabbed people until they isolated.
He has some stabby pig stickers. I can't remember. You got them pig stickers on your hands. Yeah. So I have no idea what we're getting into, and I was like, is this going to be deservedly one of the top picks? And spoiler,
it's the number one issue that came out in 1996. So.
Spoiler alert, this might be my favorite comic of what we've covered so far, which is only 4 months worth, but there may be some contenders later on down as we go down through the rest of 96 number ones, but I really dug this. I think this is a great concept. Essentially what we have here, and there's more issues, but we're obviously just covering the first issue. This is, just like you said, an anthology comic book where we're going to have 5 stories. 5 different creators are going to tell a Batman story, a short Batman story, and there's no color. It's black and white.
Not just a clever name.
So yeah, we'll break it down here. I'll go ahead and read the creative team and the titles here since I have them in front of me. So our first story is going to be Perpetual Mourning, written and illustrated by Ted McKeever and lettered by John Workman. Then we have Two of a Kind, which was written and illustrated by Bruce Timm, lettered by Todd Klein. Then we have The Hunt, which was written and illustrated by Joe Kubert. And then we have Petty Crimes, written and illustrated by Howard Chaykin, lettered by Ken Bruzenak. And then The Devil's Trumpet, written by Archie Goodwin, illustrated by Jose Munoz, and lettered by Paul Felix.
It's an interesting lineup. I'm reading one of the collected editions on Hoopla, so there was a little intro. A lot of these guys I was familiar with. Ted McKeever, I was not. It's nice to see Bruce Timm finally do something Batman adjacent.
Finally.
But it's a pretty cool lineup, at least one, if not. if I wasn't familiar with one person on the creative team, I knew the other usually. I know there's more, but writer and artist. So it was interesting. And some of these, sometimes the short stories get a bad rap as like filler, but two of my favorite Alan Moore stories were like very short Green Lantern backup tales that he did. So you can really do something neat with this. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know, even if I had been more open-minded about DC in 96, if this would have drawn my attention, because I tend to be more about, as much as I love standalone issues and things like that, I probably would have been more attracted to the main ongoing series or whatever.
Right.
Any of these could be continuity. The aforementioned Alan Moore stories, both Mogo and Rotlop Fan have appeared in a number of other comics. I'm not poo-pooing this concept. I'm saying that teenage me might not have been like, oh, some of the greatest. No, I wanted what if Batman and the Joker are going to team up to fight the Anti-Monitor or something. So it might not have been big enough for me to appreciate back then.
I get it. I really do. I know that if you would have handed me a black and white comic, I probably would have been.
Did you fight dinosaurs in this one?
There was not. I didn't have the appreciation for storytelling that I do now. That is for sure. So. You don't need flashy color. You don't need that to tell a good story. And this is one of those instances where it's definitely a case for that, where they can say, here, you just pay attention to the story. And if it's done well, we got 5 stories here in this issue to find out if that's the case by some pretty good creators. So, all right, you ready?
And stories you couldn't have told in a 22-page issue, or no one would have wanted to read them.
That's true.
Might not have given them a chance. I said I might not have been intrigued by this. I probably, and that's not a judgment on the quality, but probably a lot of comic readers, I don't know if we would have appreciated a 22-page Devil's Trumpet.
All right, let's get into our first story here. So again, this is Perpetual Mourning. Batman investigates the murder of a young woman found in Gotham's shadows, approaching her body with a mix of clinical precision and deepening emotional weight as he instructs her final moments, realizing she was not killed for gain, but senselessly, and that she fought back with everything that she had. Through careful examination, he uncovers key clues, including a fragment of her attacker's tooth and evidence of her last meal, which leads him to identify her as Chelsea, a quiet dinner regular whose ordinary life underscores the tragedy of her death. As he follows the trail toward her killer, Batman reflects on the burden he carries, haunted by those he couldn't save, ultimately vowing that Chelsea will not be forgotten and that her struggle, her identity, and her death will drive him forward until justice is done. So there you go. That very simple story. Batman is essentially conducting an autopsy in a morgue. So it's not like he's at a crime scene figuring all this out. She's actually in a morgue and he is doing the autopsy, which one of my notes here is like, GCPD just be like, okay, man, yeah, go ahead. You can do whatever you want or go.
At this point, he's been working with them for a while. There was a magnificent Brave and the Bold story where he's on the run from the police and he sneaks in by putting on a police jacket and hat over his full Batman costume.
Yes, I remember this.
Which would have been not really in keeping with the tone and intent of the story, but I kind of want to see it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, well, we can tell that she's from here. Batman, can you just take the hat off?
Yeah, come on, man. We don't unnecessary.
Yeah, this is probably not a story Bob Haney would have written, but that's okay.
Okay.
One of the great things about Batman is that he can work in so many different stories and things like that. What I thought was cool about this is we know Batman's a great detective and everything, and we do get some clues, but we never get the whole story.
No, we don't.
Of what happened to Chelsea, because that's not what this story is about. It's about what Batman feels and experiences. Now, this one could have been a 22-page story where we got the mystery and this glimpse
the culprit
in Batman.
Right.
What's important here is that she's not just another case to Batman or whatever, and that he feels more than he lets on. Batman solving a murder that doesn't even involve anyone in a costume is not what you're here for. It's to see what makes Batman tick. And
Right.
that's what makes it really interesting to me.
Yeah. The choice that they made to kind of show a dance that is going on in different panels that kind of give you a good idea of the dance that Batman is doing with these clues and with Chelsea trying to figure out who killed her. But every once in a while you'll get a panel of a couple dancing. The one that I remember explicitly is where he grabs her hand and he's beginning to look at her fingernails, and then we switch to the couple that are dancing, and you see the man grab her hand and hold it just like he is. I thought that was really cool. It was a neat way to add to the story. It's almost like he's getting to know who Chelsea is throughout the autopsy. This is a focus on the victim. It's not just a focus on the crime. It's trying to determine who this victim is and then possibly what happens to her. And just like you said, we don't find Batman doesn't accost the culprit in any way. He doesn't beat him up. He doesn't do any of that. It's just a matter of figuring out who this poor woman was before she lost her life. So, yeah, I wrote down here there's no real resolution. It doesn't show the killer being caught. And this is more about the process and emotion than the outcome of what's going to happen. I think as far as this one goes, this one stood out to me. And this is what I was like, okay, this is interesting. We're getting into some good short stories that are going to be told by these creators. And it's definitely one of the more unique ones in this issue. So anything else on this one?
It's not like this is like everything changes here. This is a defining moment in Batman's life and career. It's a good story that shows you how Batman works and kind of undercuts the idea that Batman's just this stoic, relentless machine. He even gives her credit for catching the guy because she hit him in the face and a piece of his tooth is embedded in her hand.
Yeah.
So he says, she got you. Batman's just, it's not about him. He genuinely cares rather than I'm Batman and I'm going to catch everybody.
All right. Well, there it is. That was, my goodness, Perpetual Mourning. So our next story is Two of a Kind by Bruce Timm. After being seemingly cured of his Two-Face persona, Harvey Dent rebuilds his life with the help of Dr. Marilyn Crane, falling in love and planning a future together. But that fragile stability is shattered by the arrival of Marilyn's twin sister, Madeline, seductive, unstable, and obsessed with Harvey's darker nature. Now, one thing I need to make sure to point out here is that Harvey Dent is still not walking around with half of his face as scarred like it was. Dr. Marilyn Crane also helped him get his surgery. So when you see Harvey Dent, he's got a face just like it's a little misshapen on the side, but it looks like he looks completely human like he used to. So Madeline appears and Harvey is drawn to her and unable to resist what she represents. Harvey slips into an affair that awakens his buried duality, while Madeline's jealousy and hatred toward her sister spiral into violence, culminating in Marilyn's brutal murder. Consumed by guilt and teetering on the edge of madness, Harvey confronts Madeline, who reveals she killed Marilyn out of twisted love, believing she alone understands his true self. In that moment, Harvey fully succumbs to his fractured identity, embracing Two-Face once more as he kills Madeline, completing his descent and proving that the darkness within him has never and was never truly cured. Okay, I'll give you my notes here for this one. I'll go first. So I did enjoy this one overall. It's again, it's nice to see Bruce Timm doing something Batman adjacent. This was awesome.
I always wondered what it'd be like if he gave it a shot.
Right. There is a bit of...
Maybe they can get Dan Jurgens to do some Superman.
Let's see it. I wrote down here the surprising tone because this is a comic. Some of the stuff that happens in here, specifically some of the more risque stuff between Two-Face, Harvey, and Madeline. She's dressed rather provocatively, and they also silhouette appear to be in the throes of passion. We'll just put it that way. Now, granted, I'm not the biggest TAS viewer. I don't really know a whole lot, but I imagine this was pushing envelopes that series wasn't going to do that because that was made for kids. Point being.
Well, there was the episode where Harley asked Joker if he wanted to rev up his Harley. So
pushing the envelope. I'll tell you what I did like. I loved Bruce Timm's art here. It's pretty much as expected. It was awesome just to see that in print form. I believe that there is great character work here done for Harvey Dent / Two-Face. This is a dark psychological tale. It felt very animated series in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think my favorite moment out of this story is when Two-Face realizes that there's no saving himself. So he takes coals out of a fire and then burns the other side of his face so he can bring the stars back. Really big moment in my opinion. He's actively choosing to become Two-Face at that point. So yeah, I think this is one of the stronger and one of the more complete stories that we get in this book. And it's dark, it's character driven, and I feel like it's pretty memorable. So your thoughts on Two of a Kind?
Yeah, I wrote that it felt like an episode of the show, albeit one that Fox wouldn't have been able to air on a Saturday morning.
That's right.
But those shows, even though they were generally all ages, some of those stories are pretty enduring and pretty quintessential Batman for a lot of fans. So one thing I thought was interesting about this, because I can think of at least one other and maybe two other times where Two-Face was cured, like with plastic surgery and the whole 9 yards. And it's, again, part of me was like, wow, so Two-Face gets cured, gets rid of the physical deformity that obviously wasn't the root cause of his problems, and it's like what an 8-page story in a black and white anthology. But that also kind of says something about like the ongoing nature of comic storytelling, because this would seem to be a quintessential Two-Face story. He gets cured, and you could blame the twin for coming in a trench coat and her underwear if you want to, but this is all on Harvey.
It is. It really is.
It's oh, she's a twin. Well, I can't. No, come on, Harvey. You knew what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it tells us that the outward scars are just the icing on the cake that is Two-Face, and it tells this great story so quickly. And yeah, it is one that has been repeated, I think, after this, but it feels like, I'm sure they did for the Batman anniversary, they did like anthologies and stuff of like things with his villains, and this one, I'm not a Two-Face scholar, but I would think this one ought to have been included.
Yeah,
because this just sums up Two-Face as well as anything I've ever read, and the juxtaposition of this definite cartoony art with this not at all, I don't think there was anything too over the top in it.
No.
But this not at all kid-friendly story is just really cool. I think that was one of the things that endured about Batman the Animated Series, is it looked like a Saturday morning cartoon, but it often did not feel like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Right.
Yeah, this is just a great noir story. I could see if they were doing this now, like, let's make this a 5-issue story and get the trade paperback prepped and maybe some tie-in issues and stuff. It's like, no, you told the whole story. You expertly defined Two-Face in 8 pages.
Yeah, quite a feat. My goodness. Yeah, they're like Marilyn laying bloody on the steps and written in blood on the wall. Now it's just the two of us. Yeah, it's definitely darker for sure. All right, you ready to move on here to our next story, The Hunt?
I think so.
All right. So this is Joe Kubert's shot at this, The Hunt. I'll read the synopsis here. This is an interesting story. In The Hunt, Batman is framed as part, not framed, but framed as part of the natural order of the night, paralleling the awakening of bats who emerge at dusk to feed and survive, as he descends upon a group of criminals violently interrogating a man and terrorizing his wife for the location of a priceless jewel. Observing like a predator before striking, Batman crashes into the scene with explosive force, dismantling the gang with relentless efficiency and an uncompromising sense of justice that treats all wrongdoing equally. After rescuing the victims and dragging the criminals off to face their fate, the story shifts into a reflective, almost dreamlike close as Bruce Wayne awakens, surrounded by the imagery of circling bats, reinforcing that Batman is not merely a man, but a creature bound to an endless cycle driven by instinct, purpose, and the unceasing need to hunt evil in the darkness. It was a dream! So what's your thoughts here on The Hunt?
It was cool to see. I'm sure Joe Kubert's done a lot of Batman and not just imagine Stan Lee creating Batman, but it was, again, not the first person I'd think of for this. So that was neat. Yeah, you could tell there were some dreamlike qualities in it because it didn't feel quite like a standard Batman story. None of these are standard, but it felt a little off.
Yeah.
But it was intentionally so. I said, so Batman dreams about being Batman, but with more bat.
Yeah.
I guess if there's any better analysis than that, it's, well, I just realized the lady that's leading the gang apparently is the best she is at what she does, because right before Batman jumps in, she slashes the guy with a knife, and did you see the sound effect?
Oh, that does indeed say snicked.
One of the Batman catchphrases, not unlike being the best there is at what he does for Wolverine, is criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. And this is like Batman's reading some of his own press. He's thinking or dreaming about himself in this kind of more than human, frightening way. So that's kind of an interesting. If he inhabits all this all the time, Batman's a rational dude, but on some level, maybe he's getting into the role a little bit.
Yeah, for me, as I'm going down through these, I'm also ranking them in my head. This was probably one of the weaker ones just for me. I imagine a lot of people could find a lot of value in Joe Kubert doing what he did here. But as far as story goes, this is it was all a dream. And I guess it does give you a glimpse into the psyche, which, hearing what you said, that helps me understand more that we're getting a sense of what he believes himself to be here. There are some classic visual moments here. Batman crashing through a window, correct? He's going through a window. Upside down, that's right. Batman moving with the bats too, which looked really cool. I thought that was pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. I believe, like I said, I think the plot's kind of basic. In the dream ending kind of makes it, kind of undercuts kind of what happened here. But also, you talk about the dream.
It explains Batman floating upside down.
It also explains
flying away with the bats.
Yeah, I was going to say, he grabs all three. There's three people that are attacking this couple, and he grabs all three of them to take them away and flies off with them in his arms. And I was like, okay. This
is not canon.
Yeah, right.
Detective Comics number 283 clearly shows Batman cannot.
He cannot fly. It looked cool. I just think the story was a bit thin. But aside from that, I really don't have much else to say.
You can't cram an entire character-defining story into 8 pages.
No, they cannot. I think Kubert probably just like, he's sitting there thinking, like, appeals to me about the Batman. And we got that. So it's decent. If you like Kubert and you want to see some Kubert art on Batman, I'm sure there's plenty out there, but this was neat to see him just go to town here in a black and white comic and tell a story. So we're about to get into one of my favorite stories in this book, and that is Petty Crimes by Howard Chaykin.
I know you're always a fan of solving problems with violence.
In Petty Crimes, Batman investigates a string of killings committed by a methodical murderer dubbed Civic Virtue, a man who targets ordinary people over minor social infractions, cutting in line, poor manners, everyday rudeness, believing these small lapses signal the collapse of civilization itself. As Batman follows the trail through Gotham's oppressive heat and mounting tension, he realizes the killer's logic is disturbingly coherent, even as his actions grow more extreme, culminating in calculated murders disguised as accidents. Some of them are somewhat disguised as accidents. Some of them look like straight up murders. Like the one where he kills the lady in the... We'll talk about that here in a second. When Batman finally confronts him, the killer argues that they are not so different, both acting outside the law to impose order, and even suggests that true justice requires eliminating society's lesser offenders. Though Batman momentarily acknowledges the uncomfortable parallel, he ultimately rejects the philosophy, stopping the killer and walking away with the uneasy understanding that the line between justice and obsession is thinner than either would like to admit. Okay. So yes, I did like this story. I think this is probably my favorite story in the issue. This gave me Falling Down vibes, if you remember that movie with Michael Douglas. We have a guy here who just keeps... This stuff just keeps happening, and he gets to a certain point, and he just kind of, I say flips out. He commits murder here. I don't think that totally happens in Falling Down. It's been a while since I watched it, but regardless, and it's so funny because he's just, I think at one point there's a guy who's walking his dog, and I think the dog poops somewhere. They don't show it, and he's this hoity-toity guy's like, good boy, and they take off walking, and then Batman's at that scene of the crime. This guy's dead.
Did you recognize the guy walking the dog?
No.
Well, they were in a section of town called the Devil's Workshop.
No. They were. I do remember that. Do you think that was supposed to be a Matt Murdock analog?
That's what I thought when I saw the guy.
Wow.
That's definitely not a seeing eye dog, but look at the
glass,
the grin and the glasses.
Yep.
And the Devil's Workshop. That's how I took it.
That's interesting. So I wanted to talk about the crash that happens, because each time this happens, we see the guy and his face, and he has this kind of annoyed face, but we don't see him kill anybody. You just know that it happened.
And that look on his face is in the same place 5 pages in a row.
It looks the exact same. He looks like a mad Kyle Chandler. That was my thought. I was like, he looks like Kyle Chandler, and he's upset.
Oh, do you think he's actually reading the next day's newspaper in that, on the second page there?
What was that, Morning Edition? Is that what it was called? Early Edition.
How is that show not streaming as on Paramount Plus?
No kidding.
And then they did the martial law crossover.
I remember that happening, but I don't know if I've ever seen it. Sounds great. So there's a moment where he's behind somebody in a car, an old lady who's driving, I think, really slow.
Yeah.
And again, we see his face. He looks like he's annoyed. And apparently there's like a 10-car pileup or something that happens. So I guess my first question here really is, does he have powers? Or is he just like going up and killing somebody, and that's what's causing the accident here? Because the other ones are pretty self-explanatory, or I should say not self-explanatory, but more like you can see somebody shot these two guys in the theater right in the head.
Yeah, I think he's just I don't think he has powers.
Okay, so he then somehow caused the wreck.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm still looking at that, and I can't fully figure out what happened with the pile up there.
Yeah, it looks like a mess of metal and cars that just came together or something, which, again, I don't know how. Something bad had to have happened in order for them to think that this guy killed.
There's smoke coming off of it, so maybe he set it on fire after the accident.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chaikin is counting on us to fill in some blanks, and I did not keep up with him. I'm not sure that's a failing on his part.
Yeah, I hear you. There's some fun social commentary happening here, which I like. Him just saying a lot of okay boomer stuff going on too. Like, this guy is just so fed up with these kids making a noise in this theater, and
I get that.
Yeah,
but that one caught me off guard because for a minute, I forgot that this came out in the 90s. How was I supposed to know that by the show or the title of the series? But the version I checked out on Hoopla was released in 2014.
Ooh.
What happened in 2012 involving Batman in a movie theater.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have released this. That would have been a little too much, but I wonder if they had second thoughts about it.
Right.
that is not, like I said, they did nothing wrong by doing it. It's not glorifying it, even though I think part of the point they make is that, yeah, we all get annoyed at this stuff and get angry at this stuff. And I've often said there's a lot of things that people can passionately disagree about and be sincere. Even if you don't agree with them, you can kind of see where they come from, and there's complicated issues. And then there's someone who won't put their cart back in the cart return at the grocery store and just leaves it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Now, if there's like a thunderstorm, if you have some sort of physical disability, I get it. But otherwise, you're just being lazy and you're like, I'm the only person that matters. So obviously, at no point is civic virtue here justified in what he does.
Right.
But I get it. I get the frustration.
Absolutely.
Not rising murder, but
right.
Or even yelling at somebody, but that's the thing is you're like, well, yeah, this is appalling, except I totally get where he's coming from.
Right. Did you have anything else here? What were your notes? Any notes on your end?
That was it. Is that Matt Murdock? Unfortunate timing on the movie theater scene, and then simple but relatable. And not the idea of killing people for minor infractions, but the frustration and the way people excuse or justify things. It's like, well, he did kind of ask for it. No, he didn't.
Yeah,
he was just kind of...
His argument to Batman, too, about like, hey, we're not so different. Luckily, Batman shuts that down pretty quickly. He's like, clearly we are, because I have not murdered somebody in cold blood because of this. There is some type of argument to be had that they are both trying to make some kind of a change in society for the better. It's just civic virtue is going about it really wrong.
Yeah.
So...
I do like the way Howard Chaykin draws Batman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It feels classic, but kind of unique at the same time.
Yeah. I dug it, too. I really wish I would have...
His head kind of reminds me of the Tick, but the jaw narrows more. The Tick starts small and just keeps getting wider.
Right. All right. Well, then let's get into our final story here, our fifth and final story. This is called... The Devil's Trumpet, or Devil's Trumpet. Archie Goodwin and Jose Munoz. Jose Munoz, born in Argentina in 1942, Jose Munoz has become one of the world's most respected and admired artists. A true original in his approach to draftsmanship and storytelling, his work on the graphic novels Sinner and Joe's Bar are classics of the medium. To say that Jose's unique, unrestrained drawing style has been influential to many well-known American artists over the years would be an understatement. His work with longtime collaborator Carlos Sampaio on the 1993 graphic biography Billie Holiday remains a touchstone with dozens of comics' leading illustrators. And then we have Archie Goodwin. Often hailed as the most respected writer in the industry, Archie Goodwin is a 30-year veteran in the comics field. He has written the major characters for DC and Marvel, has written syndicated newspaper strips such as Star Wars and Tarzan, and was even editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics. Archie's astounding writing and editing stints on creepy, eerie, and blazing combat are a creative feat that is still held in awe. He is currently a group editor here at DC. All right, so here we go. Let's get into Devil's Trumpet. A haunting jazz legend weaves its way into Gotham's present as the story of Coley Treadwell, who supposedly won a supernatural trumpet from the devil, echoes through the years until it reaches ambitious but dissatisfied musician Les Farrell. Frustrated that technical skill has brought him success but not true greatness, Farrell becomes obsessed with the myth and ultimately acquires the mysterious horn, even committing murder to possess it. Believing the trumpet can unlock something deeper, he plays with reckless intensity, pushing beyond restraint in pursuit of transcendence. But the legend twists on him. As he reaches his peak, the demon, in quotes, said to answer the horn's call, appears, but not as a supernatural entity, but as Batman, drawn by Farrell's crime. In the end, Farrell is taken away, broken and raving, while the trumpet vanishes once more into rumor and shadow, its dark promise lingering for the next soul desperate enough to believe.
Oh, would you like to hear my trumpet notes?
Yes, I would, as a matter of fact.
I didn't have a lot to write about this one because it's a pretty standard ghost story that just throws Batman in there.
Yeah.
A lot of people are the main character in their own story, and Batman is not. So I thought it was a cool use of Batman because I was like, okay, they sort of mentioned Bruce Wayne. I guess this is happening in Gotham. Oh, okay, we have one panel of Batman. It's a pretty cool use of Batman. It was a standard story, but it was done very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this Archie Goodwin guy might have a future in comics.
I'd like to find some other stuff. Maybe he's done something else. I don't know. This is my least favorite story out of all of these. I'd probably put this at number 5 just because of some of the things you've already said. Some of the stuff I did like. I liked the twist at the end. I thought that was cool. The demon that's supposed to come when you play the horn, but it's Batman coming in there to swoop in and stop this guy because he had I don't think he intentionally murdered the other guy. I think it was an accident. I don't know. But either way, he definitely killed somebody and ran. So Batman's after him. I think that's a strong concept from Goodwin here. All respect to Jose Munoz. There was some things that I had problems interpreting when it came to the art. There were some moments where it was kind of hard to follow what was going on. I didn't have that problem with any of the other stories we had in here. There's a fight scene where the guy gets murdered when Les takes the horn. There's a fight scene that I had no idea what was going on. When I looked at the panel, I could not figure out, who's getting the upper, what is actually happening in the panel. It was tough for me to do that.
So might have benefited from a little color.
I 100% agree with that because I was trying to figure out, maybe it's a situation where if it did have a color, some coloring to it, I would have been able to figure out who was who. You can't throw all that in a black and white comic and expect people to keep it straight sometimes. This is just my personal opinion. This could work differently for somebody else, but this style did not work for me.
Mike Mignola. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mike Mignola.
I wonder if he's a fan of this artist.
Yeah, right.
Because I can see some influences.
So yeah, I can respect the artistry here. It just kind of made the story harder to enjoy, and that's probably why I ended up with my least favorite. That's really kind of all I had as far as that final story goes. So I guess, hey, it is Unspoken Issues. I guess we should pick a panel. I already know what mine's going to be. Do you have anything in mind for yours?
I did not even think about that because remember I briefly forgot this was a 90s comic. But I'm going to go ahead and say, not in an attempt to troll you, but I was literally just thinking that scene in The Devil's Trumpet, the panel where Batman bursts through the window. I was like, man, I wonder if I could get that as my desktop background.
Yeah.
That says a lot. That's a very cool image. So that's the one that stuck with me at all of this.
I'll give you that. That looked good. Mine was real easy. It's going to be Mad Kyle Chandler.
Which one?
I want to take the one where he's behind the newspaper.
Okay.
Not the popcorn one. It's definitely the one where he's behind the newspaper.
The angel left out in the rain.
What a fun issue this was. Like I said, I dig anthology stories. I like the challenge that creators have to try and tell a story in such a small amount of room. Each one of these guys told a great story in that small part. And I did rank them and I said which ones were my least favorite. That doesn't mean they were horrible. It just means that each story had something to bring and some were better than others in my opinion. I hope at some point I get the opportunity to check out the rest of this series and see who the rest of the creators are going to be because I want to see. Yeah.
Oh, here, I give you a sneak peek.
Yeah.
First volume.
Okay.
So issue 2, I promise you it's in here. Okay, issue 2, a cover by Frank Miller.
Oh.
The first story written and illustrated by Walt Simonson.
Okay.
The second one, I don't know how to pronounce the writer's name, Jan Sternad, but illustrated by Richard Corbin.
Is Sternad spelled Strnad or?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, okay. I think we may have done something that they had done in the past, but go ahead.
Okay, one written and illustrated by Kent Williams.
Okay.
Familiar with him?
No.
one drawn by Jorge Zafino and written by another guy that I'm glad to see test out Batman, Chuck Dixon.
Maybe he'll get his feet wet and maybe do something with it. You never know.
Neil Gaiman and Simon Bisley.
Oh, I'd kind of like to see what that is, to be honest.
That's just the second issue. The third one has a cover by Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh, wow.
First story written and illustrated by Klaus Janson.
Okay.
Second one written by Andrew Helfer, whose name sounds familiar, illustrated by Liberatore.
Well, I was going to say, what?
Yeah. Then written and illustrated by Matt Wagner, written and illustrated by Bill Sienkiewicz.
Oh, gosh. That one's got to be wild.
Well, it's called Bent Twigs, so...
I can infer everything from that.
A Sleighing Song Tonight, illustrated by Teddy Christensen and drawn by another newcomer to Gotham City, Dennis O'Neil.
Oh, yes.
Let's see, then we got issue 4, cover by Alex Toth, story written and illustrated by Brian Boland.
Okay. Joke, yeah.
Another story by Jan Sternad, illustrated by Kevin Nolan.
Okay.
Another Archie Goodwin.
Okay.
Illustrated by Gary Gianni. Another Dennis O'Neil, illustrated by Brian Stelfreeze. And written and illustrated by Katsuhiro Otomo, translated by Joe Duffy.
This is like one of those books. I read almost all my stuff digitally, but there are some projects like this that I would love to own just physically, and in order to say, okay, yeah, I have all of these creators doing these stories in this book. Evan Bevins, we have reached the end of the episode. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on the internet?
Well, a lot of times you can find me popping up on one of your shows, even though one of my kids says I'm your last resort. Now, I do have a whole bunch of blog entries at asterisk51.blogspot.com, trying to get into seeing how Substack works, so I might have a link to that to share with you next time, but I'm still trying to feel that out and figure out what to do there. But speaking of anthologies with interesting creative teams, I'm getting ready tomorrow to record the next episode of our Marvel Fanfare show over on the Magazines and Monsters channel with Billy and Ed Moore.
Awesome.
So that's been fun to look through.
All right, well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, you're most likely listening to this on the Source Material Comics feed, and we appreciate that. All sorts of great content here. You got the Unspoken Issues podcast, which is right now, the month that we're in right now, there's been a lot of Unspoken Issues episodes that have been dropping. Our discussion on Astro City, Carl Kessel's run on Daredevil, and then also Shadows of the Empire popped up on there. We had a great discussion about that. And it looks like at the end of April was Hitman #1 was the March poll winner. So we had a fun discussion there. So go check that out. And then, of course, the Source Material Comics podcast, where we discuss comic books of any era. And we just dropped one right out of the blue. It's called Tag and Bink Are Dead. That dropped yesterday. So
spoiler alert.
And if you like Star Wars, I'm telling you, check that discussion out. That was a lot of fun. And then, of course, Snap Material, where me and Evan Bevins get together and we talk Marvel Snap. So check that out as well. That's it. 96 #1s marches on. We are going to be going into May's poll winner next time you hear us at the end of June. So we will talk to you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
An Archie good one.
An Archie good one. Yes, indeed.